He sounds absolutely splendid. So I agree with him. We need more young people involved in politics.
But for now, you're going for Liz Truss. Why?
I am. Why? Because in Cabinet, Liz was the most supportive Cabinet Minister in getting Brexit opportunities and was using her role and her chairmanship of Cabinet committees to make sure we could get the Brexit opportunities through. She also opposed the endless tax rises of the former Chancellor, which I think have been economically damaging. I also was opposed to within Cabinet. And I think that's important, that you have somebody who is fiscally on the right side of the argument, who doesn't believe that higher taxation is the right answer to every question. And because I think she's been very good in leading with the Prime Minister on Ukraine and making sure we had a strong response to Russia. So I think in foreign policy and domestic policy and European policy, she's got the right answers.
How important is loyalty to you?
Extremely important.
How long do you think she'd been planning her campaign for?
Well, I think lots of people had had drinks parties with other MPs and they had had meetings. But that's the routine business of Cabinet Ministers. Even I had drinks parties with other MPs when I was allowed to. So
they've been plotting for ages then?
No, I don't think that's right. I think that you have a job as a Cabinet Minister to meet other MPs so that you hear the views of backbenchers and understand what their concerns are. As Leader of the House, mine were mainly around issues to do with parliamentary procedure and so on. But the Foreign Secretary would naturally have them with other members of Parliament to find out what their views were on foreign policy.
I'm standing out their support.
No, that's the assumption that gets made. It's not setting up a website. It's not getting ready in December for a campaign to come sometime later.
Didn't she register a domain name quite a long time ago?
That's a different order of magnitude. I have no idea whether she registered a domain name. But it's very important that Cabinet Ministers, whilst they're in Cabinet, are loyal. I was, as you know, and am a great supporter of Boris Johnson and was involved in his campaign very early on. But that did not happen until he had ceased to be Foreign Secretary.
You say Liz Truss is a strong Brexiteer. In fact, you were in number 10 with Nadine Dorries saying that she is a stronger Brexiteer than you and Nadine Dorries put together. Did she not vote for Remain?
I think you need to look at what people are doing now. It is possible for people to change their mind. So, yes, of course, everyone knows Liz voted for Remain.
I thought so.
But what I was saying is within Cabinet, it's very interesting because when we had a right round on the retained EU law bill, the Foreign Secretary was completely supportive about getting rid of the supremacy of EU law and having a sunset on EU law. One of the departments that objected was the Treasury, which didn't want tax policy to be taken away from EU interference. So you have a department led by an ostensible Brexiteer that was backing the supremacy of EU law, and a department led by an ostensible Remainer that was backing ending the supremacy of EU law. I think you have to judge people by what they do currently.
To that end, European Convention on Human Rights, even Dominic Raab says that he wanted to remain as part of that, whereas Liz Truss was saying yesterday, I believe, that she thinks that we shouldn't be. What do you think?
Well, I think that there's a bill before Parliament at the moment, the UK Bill of Rights, British Bill of Rights, which is a sensible way of proceeding. What we need to be able to do is recognise that the highest form of law in this country is law made in Parliament, that is our authoritative law and that must be enforced, and that is subject to the greatest of human rights, democratic oversight.
Yeah, but the Justice Secretary is bringing that forward, and even he has said that he thinks that we should still remain within the European Convention.
But the European Convention is not in and of itself a bad document. It is how it is interpreted and applied, and the ridiculous injunction imposed by the European Court stopping the Rwandan deportations, which had been approved by UK courts and had been approved by the UK Parliament, is not something that the UK can carry on putting up with.
So you agree with her, we should come out of it?
Whether you need to come out of it formally or whether you can get derogations is a different matter. I think getting derogations is probably a simpler way of doing it.
Nadine Dorries, who, again, we saw you with yesterday, accusing Rishi Sunak, or certainly the campaign, of dirty tricks by lending votes to Jeremy Hunt. What do you think? I
have no idea whether that's going on or not.
If it was?
Well, what we need to do is to get two candidates to the final round in a way that the members of the Conservative Party can choose. I'm strongly in favour of the mandate coming from members of the Conservative Party, I'm sure that no one would wish to stitch it up in advance. And if they did, I would think that would be improper. But I don't have any evidence that people are doing that.
So lending votes would be inappropriate, is how you feel about that?
But I'm not making any accusations of that kind.
I'm
no,
saying
but you know how it is.
If it were to happen.
With interviews, that things can sometimes get taken out of context later. So to be absolutely clear, I have no evidence that's going on. But if it were going on, it would obviously be improper.
Why do you think he's a socialist, Rishi Sunak?
Well, now you're referring to things that may or may not have been said in Cabinet, and I'm glad to say there's a 30-year rule, actually reduced to 20 years.
Do you think he is a socialist?
I think as a Chancellor, he made decisions that were of the left rather than of the right, that he was a tax-increasing Chancellor. As I said, I didn't support the decisions he made. I thought we should have been looking at keeping expenditure under control rather than raising taxes. And I think the corporation tax rise was bad for business, bad for investment in the UK. The national insurance hike hits employers just after we're getting over the COVID problem and makes life harder for employees when we're in the midst of a cost of living crisis. I think these were bad tax rises.
So many of the candidates that I've been speaking to over the last few days are evoking the memory of Margaret Thatcher. Why are they doing that?
Well, because they think she's a golden ticket with the membership.
Is she?
I think the memory of Margaret Thatcher is highly regarded within the Conservative Party, certainly by people like me, and I think many of our members. But people don't always get what Margaret Thatcher did right. They have selective memories as to what she did. So I hear somebody's been saying that she would not be cutting taxes now. The first thing she did in 1979, when she became elected, they had a budget straight away, which had very significant cuts in taxation. So to say Margaret Thatcher would not have been a tax cut, I think is simply wrong.
But your candidate is even moulding herself in Mrs Thatcher's image.
Well, Margaret Thatcher was a great lady, so a reincarnation of Margaret Thatcher is, I think, improbable. But nonetheless, Margaret Thatcher was a very great lady.
And of the 8 candidates that are left, which of the ones would you not work with?
Well, it's a democratic process, and the party membership must decide. And I would remain a loyal backbencher, whoever was elected. I believe in conservatism.
I'm talking particularly about a cabinet post.
No,
Would you accept a cabinet post from Rishi Sunak?
No, of course I wouldn't. I believe his behaviour towards Boris Johnson, his disloyalty, means that I could not possibly support him, and he wouldn't want me in his cabinet anyway.
So it's entirely mutual?
Oh, I'm sure it is, yes. I don't think there'd be any question of him wanting me in his cabinet, but I couldn't support somebody who has been so disloyal to the current leader of the party.
Just like
from inside cabinet. And that's so important. Tom Tugendhat and Jeremy Hunt have behaved perfectly properly. They were entitled from outside cabinet to make it clear that they didn't want Boris Johnson to continue as Prime Minister. That is a reasonable thing to do, but if you're bound by collective responsibility, you should stick to that whilst you're in the cabinet. If you don't like the Prime Minister, if you think he should be replaced...
And Nadeem Zahar?
Nadeem sent his letter in when he thought the writing was on the wall and it was just a recognition of the reality. That was a matter of judgment very late in the day.
Okay. We're almost out of time. And Sajid Javid deserved his bloody nose then, did he?
No, Sajid is a very decent chap. He put out an excellent document on the economy, really very strong one. He's fallen out. I don't wish to say disobliging things about Sajid.
But he behaved in the same way Rishi Sunak did.
Well, I spoke to him yesterday and said I couldn't possibly support him on the same basis.
Good to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
A bit early in the morning, but nonetheless, a pleasure.
Welcome to my world.
I know, I admire your stamina.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you very much indeed.